Are you looking for an exciting way to inspire the next generation? Well, don't miss the Black Creativity Career Showcase at the Griffin Museum of Science and Industry on Saturday, February 22nd from 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. You can meet Black artists, engineers, and scientists right here in Chicago and discover how their innovative work is shaping the future, and take it one step further and learn how to turn your passions into a career as well. This event is free with museum entry and it's perfect for all ages. For more info, visit msichicago.org. What's up, y'all? Steppenwolf Theater's revival of Fool for Love by Sam Shepard is extended by popular demand through March 23rd. The sexy and haunting play has garnered 4 stars from the Chicago Sun-Times and the Daily Herald, which said, "Now is the time to savor the current moment of Steppenwolf returning to Shepard." Fool for Love is on stage now through March 23rd. Get tickets today at steppenwolf.org. Today on CityCast Chicago, Chicago's federal workers are protesting mass firings, Black-owned bookstores in the city are fighting to survive, and a Southside alder is pushing back against outgoing Walgreens. I promise y'all we also got some good news today. Joining me to make sense of it all, Corley J with The Tribe and Mariah Rush from the Sun-Times. It's Friday, February 21st. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. Morning, my friends. Corley, welcome back to the podcast.
Good morning, Jacoby. What up?
Always good to see you. And Mariah, welcome back to the building. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me back.
If you are new here to the podcast, welcome. We appreciate you making time. If you haven't already, please go back and check out our other episodes this week, including Best New Bars across the city, the team. We hit 8 of them between the 3 of us. We talked about a podcast that's revisiting one of Studs Terkel's legendary oral histories. And we're going to go back and look on some stories from the week today. But we started off the week with our essential rules to living in Chicago. As somebody born and raised in the city, there are just some things I understand about how the city works. And if somebody was moving here, we went through the rules or the things we'd want to inform them about. So Corley, I'm going to start with you. What is something you want a newly minted Chicagoan to know about how the city works?
I was listening to you guys, I listen to you guys every day. And when you guys talk about the 1,000 things that you love about Chicago, I'm kind of integrating that to my answer here. It's like alleys, right? Alleys. It's weird. but that's one of the things I love about Chicago. I went to New York last month, and a big thing about them not having alleys, placing their garbage in the front and everything. But I think that it's essential for new Chicagoans, transplants, to understand the importance of the Chicago alley. Someone who grew up, raised in alleys with my cousins and my brothers, and we played basketball out there. I met my husband in the alley and my great-grandparents chilling out there playing basketball, and chilling on the front. I just think that alleys are really important to the Chicago lifestyle, and I think they get overlooked and not really talked about enough.
Gee, you just took me back to so many different blocks, because I think about like the milk carton. I think about my cousin going up there to steal cable for our house in the alley. I think about the motorcycle rides in the alley. And like at least for me, we didn't necessarily have like fences where you would talk over to your neighbors on the side. You kind of connected with the people across the alleyway from you, like the man with his garage open, working on everybody's cars. But I kind of want to ask you this in terms of alley etiquette. Do you throw your trash and other people's garbage when yours gets too filled? That's my first question. I'm gonna open that up to both of y'all. Corley, Mariah, do y'all throw trash at other people's garbage when yours is too packed?
Yes. I'm embarrassed, but I feel like, me and my neighbor here, we have a great relationship. So I feel like she wouldn't mind, And I would say the same thing of her. If hers was full and mine, we have parties here and the garbage before, like, I ain't got nowhere to put this. I don't think they would mind,
Mariah, same question.
Yeah, hell yeah. I definitely do. I have a dog too, so it's kind of like a roving, always looking for someone else's trash can situation to throw her poop in or do what you gotta do. I mean, it's a trash can.
100%. Mariah, over to you. If someone you know is moving to Chicago, what would be one of your big rules or one of the things you would want them to know about the city?
Not as positive as Corley's, because I find Allie's to be positive. But Malort, I did not know it was going to be such a big deal when I moved here a few years ago. It's honestly cult-like. I've seen Malort crawls, like bar crawls. Um, White people love it, and
They
I
do.
they love it, and they decorate their houses with empty bottles. So of Malort. I would I would try to practice taking a shot of Malort before I move here, but don't feel like you have to participate.
You do not. You do not have to burn your esophagus that way. Somebody asked after we did the basement bar episode if my mom had Malort on the bar, and she does. And she also, in her bar top, she has a bunch of different mini bottles, and there are a couple in there. And I swear they're never leaving. They're going to always be in there. She's never going to have to replace them because nobody who comes to her house gets down like that. But I feel like she feels like she has to have it on there just as an option. But ain't nobody touching it now or never. And I agree with you, Mariah. If people try and trick you into it, don't let them. Like maybe take a sip, make the choice on your own.
Those aren't your friends.
Corley, you ain't never had it?
I never had it.
Yeah. So we did an episode, so I had to, but yes, stay away. Stay away. As I said earlier, every single Friday, we bring on these amazing voices from across the city to talk about some of the big stories happening in and around our amazing city. Earlier this week, gathered at Federal Plaza in the Loop, over 100 people protested the Trump administration's sudden mass firing of thousands of federal workers. Starting last month, the administration, specifically guided by Elon Musk and his bullshit Department of Government Efficiency, continued their mission to sow mass chaos and confusion by aggressively going after the federal workforce, first by offering buyouts to employees and then moving to fire most probationary employees, which began last week. Mariah, what has been the latest in the Chicago area where nearly 50,000 federal workers are based?
Yeah, it's really uncertain for federal workers. Recently, we're kind of just waiting and seeing to see what exactly will happen with them. Will they be able to take a buyout? But people are saying that they feel physically sick, and for the people that are saying that it's just like a normal kind of downsizing, their response is that it's not. It's, in quote, it's harassment, abuse, and intimidation. They're rescinding collective bargaining agreements, and people are saying that they're not concerned with following actual laws. The billionaire takeover, people are saying they didn't elect Elon, but that's what's happening. They're not concerned with following actual laws.
When we talk about federal workers, it's such a broad scope. What are some of the agencies that have seen cuts over the last couple of weeks?
Veterans Affairs, Health and Human Services, Environmental Protections Agency. The list goes on, but those are some main ones.
There are 400 Federal Aviation Administration, so the FAA, 1,500 NASA employees, which is 10% of the agency's workforce. And we already know how invested Elon Musk is in the space race. And so the idea that he now has the power to gut not just NASA, but all federal agencies in a way that we know is going to remake the sort of not only the fabric of our federal government, but the like you said, the billionaire class sort of stepping in to further privatize these necessary public goods, to see the FDA and people who test medicines and food, who test new products being slashed so callously. Ultimately, the math does not support the claim that Doge's mass firings and buyouts are going to save the federal government this so-called trillions of dollars in waste, when the salaries of federal employees only make up 5% of the overall federal budget. And so, Mariah, given that we've had some people already in the last couple of days receiving emails from the government saying, hey, we're actually rehiring you, do we have any sense of when, people will have a better sense of what their employment future is?
No, it doesn't seem like there's any sense of when that will happen. Like you said, first there was a bunch of emails telling people to take the buyouts, and then they were told that they couldn't take the buyouts and then ordered to return to the office, even though there wasn't space for all of them. And then there was a layoff last Thursday of 1,000 probationary VA employees across the country. But now a bunch of Chicago employees are kind of in limbo. And there's over 48,000 federal workers in the Chicago area alone.
Now is the time to get your tickets to Timeline Theater Company's Chicago premiere of Debate, Baldwin versus Buckley. Following critically acclaimed runs in both New York and London, this is a site-specific immersive show imagining the historic debate between author and civil rights leader James Baldwin and William F. Buckley Jr. right around the event's 60th anniversary, no less. Presented in partnership with the American Vicarious and the Theater School at DePaul University, Debate, Baldwin versus Buckley depicts a clash that reveals the haunting legacy of racism in America. Giving it 3.5 stars, the Tribune calls it startlingly current, both of its moment and timeless. Debate, Baldwin versus Buckley is running now through March 2nd at the Cordell U Commons on DePaul's Lincoln Park campus. Visit timelinetheater.com for more info and tickets.
What sort of promises have you made to yourself this year? Maybe get in better shape or eat healthier, save more money, travel somewhere new. What about discovering a new culture by learning a new language? With Babbel, you can do that in just a few weeks. I'm CityCast CEO David Plotz, and I'm having such a good time learning Spanish on Babbel this year. I'm taking a trip to Mexico City in the spring, and Babbel is giving me the Spanish foundation that's going to make my trip so much better. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons, handcrafted by more than 200 language experts, get you to begin speaking your new language in 3 weeks or at whatever pace you choose. And because conversing is the key to really understanding each other in a new language, Babbel is designed using practical, real-world conversations. And one way they do that is with their own podcasts. I'm a podcast listener. I'm guessing since you're listening to this podcast, you are too. And I have been getting ready for my Mexico City trip by listening to Babbel's conversational podcasts. There's a short conversation you listen to, then an instructor talks you through what happened, and then you listen again, and then you catch everything when you listen that second time. There's also a great read-along transcript, too, which I love. The one I did today was with Maria and Carmela trying to make dinner plans, but Carmela is so busy. She's way too busy with work and yoga, but finally they agreed on brunch on Saturday. Studies from Yale, Michigan State, and other universities continue to prove that Babbel works. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college. So let's get more of you talking in a new language. Babbel is gifting CityCast listeners 60% off subscriptions at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Babbel.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Corley, over to a story I know you've been following closely. Last month, Walgreens announced its plan to close 5 Southside stores by the end of next week, including ones on 34th and King Drive in Bronzeville, 26th Street in Little Village, 71st and Western in Chicago Lawn, 91st and Commercial in South Chicago, and then 71st and Jeffrey, which is a location I've used as a pharmacy. People in my family still use as a pharmacy. South Shore 5th Ward Alder Desmond Yancey has been working on a way to help secure a store neighbors will be happy with in South Shore. Corley, what exactly is the Alder trying to do in this case?
Right. So Alderman Desmond Yancey applied for rezoning last month for the commercial property to be changed to mixed residential use. And he's doing it as a ploy to kind of divert Walgreens, who has to lease the property, still the property leaser until 2031. So he wants to rezone it to prevent Walgreens from bringing in like a Dollar Tree, something that neighbors say they don't want, or like another beauty supply. So he's doing this to kind of slow down the leasing options. And so once he and Walgreens and community members come to an agreement that this is what we're going to get in this space, then he will change it back to this commercial zoning. So it's not really to actually demolish the property there, but to kind of prevent them from, renting out to something else like that. And thanks to Maxwell at Block Club, he actually just put up a story not too long ago where he went to a community meeting last night where neighbors got to kind of talk about what they would like to see in that space. And some of those ideas include like a healthcare center, another pharmacy to replace Walgreens, or even a restaurant. Going through Maxwell's story, I learned that Walgreens actually has this like non-compete clause where it says another pharmacy cannot replace them. But Alderman Yancey is hopeful that they can kind of override that and come to an agreement.
By changing the ordinance, are there any guarantees that Walgreens will comply and, ultimately put in a tenant that the neighbors approve of, or that they won't just leave it sitting vacant for the next, 6 years?
That's a good question. That's one of the questions that I actually had when I was reading through that. Like, what does that mean? And I think it'll be interesting to see what they do. I mean, Walgreens was not at the community meeting last night. So I don't know if that would make them, like, oh, you know what? I really want to, work with the community to put something here. Or it's like, you know what? Forget y'all. Y'all don't want to, allow us to rent this place out, then we won't do anything. But I think that it's interesting, and I'm just like ready to see what happens. Walgreens wants to close 25% of its stock, which they deem unprofitable, and it's been impacting the south and west sides. I reported on a closure in North Lawndale that happened, I believe, in December. So it's like really heartbreaking to see these stores close. You have like senior citizens and other people who may not have the means to get to these stores, and the ones closing near them, is very impactful.
Yeah. And I know for a lot of people, when I say these neighborhoods and these locations, they may not see the city like as a map and not immediately understand where all of those are. But when you include the locations that have closed, like you said, out in the Hunnits, it's like there's no part of the southwest, southeast, south central side of the city, far south with Roseland, near south with Bronzeville. There's no part of the south side that hasn't been touched by these closures. And again, it's really hard to explain just how many people rely on these stores for basic goods in their home beyond their medicine every single week. And we know that that's such a huge part of what they bring to a neighborhood. And I've seen a few Walgreens that have just set close. Like, this isn't the first one to close in South Shore. So it's really heartbreaking to see how many big chains have just had mass exodus over the last few years. Mariah, earlier this week, you published a story about Chicago's Black-owned bookstores, which we all know there are not a ton of. And you covered how they're doing in 2025. And so I got to ask, are we getting some early good news? Are you about to sit here and tell me everything is going smooth as hell?
I hate to break it to you. No, it is not. I talked to nearly all of the Black-owned bookstores over the last few weeks, and those owners are telling me that since 2020, they have not been seeing the surge that happened that year. All of the, there was a lot of what they're calling like white guilt or virtue signaling, where maybe those people that went out of their way to purchase books from Black-owned bookstores, the How to Be an Anti-Racist, those kind of books, maybe they weren't genuine, or maybe it was just a moment. It wasn't a mindset shift. That's what the owners are saying. And now they're struggling to keep their doors open. I know Corley's been covering this too as well. Semicolon Books is a major bookstore here that's Black owned and amplifies Black authors and people of color. And they announced in January that they would be closing both locations. There was one in Westtown and there was one in the Loop. And the Loop one is closed, and in Westtown, it's actually some good news, technically. That one might not be closing anymore. I know Corley is going to talk about that later, but so far they're not seeing the consistent buying that they need to see to stay in business.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you talked with folks over at Hyde Park's Call and Response, people at the Book Joint, Underground Bookstore, and Burst Into Books. Some have recently opened. Some have been open for years. Besides Semicolon, are any of these others at the point where they feel like this is like threatening their long-term or even just short-term ability to stay open?
I think that if you get into the bookstore game right now, especially as a bookstore that amplifies Black authors and Black voices, you're not really expecting to be rolling in cash. Some of them, like at the book joint, the mother and daughter that own the store were saying that it's not about profit. They're doing it to serve the community. And most of them, if not all of them, give away free books to schools, give away to kids to help the literacy in their communities. They're not doing it because they want to be millionaires. At Call and Response, a former lawyer owns that store. This isn't, them trying to make a bunch of money. And so it is a struggle I'm seeing, and they're saying that one bad month could be the difference, which is what happened over at Semicolon Books.
I talked to Semicolon owner Denny Moore. So she started this fundraiser after Kickstarter actually reached out to her upon hearing the news of her closing her locations. As Mariah said, Semicolon had to close his location on the Mag Mile last month because Denny said it was too much to operate with the costs. And also she had her checkbook stolen, which resulted in her being hacked. But fundraising efforts have given her new hopes. She is hoping that a cafe adjoining coffee shop in Semicolon will help save the bookstore. And she has a goal of $25,000. And I feel like she reached more than half of that in the last 3 days. So shout out to Danny on that. She says if she can get the $25,000, she won't have to close. And it's a new iteration for the bookstore. So I'm really happy that she was able to get this going, and with the help of community, not just here in Chicago. She talked about the tight-knit book selling community here, but also she has a book selling community that she's been talking to who has reached out to her nationwide. So they've really rallied around her to keep Semicolon open because of its importance to the community. And I'm really hopeful that it will stay open after these efforts because she raised money so fast.
A couple of weeks ago, we put out a great episode with our friend, Dr. Eve Ewing, that just went down a list of some of our favorite books to learn more about Chicago. I know there are a lot of people listening who really love their neighborhood library, or they have a great relationship with a bookstore close by them or across the city. I'm asking if you can make one of these or a few of these bookstores a part of your daily rotation, a place where you're going in to not only pick up books, but hopefully soon to get some coffee. These places can be third spaces for us as well, even if you're not just, going in there to spend your money, but also to spend your time. And so we'll drop links to all of the stories we have talked about in today's episode in our show notes. Please go through them to learn more and visit our website, chicago.citycast.fm, to catch up on old podcast episodes, including our favorite Chicago books. Every single episode of CityCast Chicago ends the same way, and that is with some good news. Coyle, we're going to start with you. What is your good news for us today, my friend?
I started swim lessons at the Croc Center last month, and I just feel myself getting better. I'm so excited. So I started these swim lessons to prepare for my trip to Jamaica next month for the 30th birthday. And
come on.
My auntie told me, if you don't know how to swim, you might as well stay home. And I was like, what? And I'm really mad at myself that I didn't start earlier because I'm learning so fast. I feel like I could be like so proficient right now if I would have just started back when I was supposed to. But, I'm late as always. So, it is what it is. But I don't plan on stopping, just because of the trip. This is something that I'm going to continue to do. Mm-hmm. I've been trying to go to the Croc, more than once a week so I can get better and get some practice in. And it's definitely been helping. I love being in the water.
Hey, Corley, we have been historically disenfranchised from community pools, swim teams, and the overall activity. And so I'm so glad that you have done this. I've never taken any type of swim class. And to be honest, I am still not a great swimmer. I'm probably like a survival swimmer. That you drop me in the middle. If I can keep my energy up, I could probably get to the wall. But I can't go into like the ocean or the lake and just be out there chilling and floating and enjoying myself, or, fall off a boat and try and figure it out. And so I'm really proud of you for taking that class in preparation for your trip.
Yeah, thank you. It's so important that you say that because, look, I told my daddy that I was starting swim lessons. He gonna say, but you Black. He was like, I was like, what are you talking about? I'm gonna be one of the blacks that know how to swim and play spades. Stop playing with me.
Gee, but that mentality is so ingrained in so many of our people, just
That's crazy.
I took swim lessons as a child and I still panic in open water. So I need to, and also my arms are too weak. So I need to be like Corley. But if the weather was better, then maybe I could be like Corley and leave my house to go swimming.
Don't let it stop you. I'm doing it in the winter.
well, your good news says that there might be some better days coming soon.
Yes, I feel like my good news is always just weather related because it really does ingrain. Like, if it's -5 degrees, I'm depressed. Like, there's no way getting around it or anything. But next week, we're supposed to get above 40 degrees, which is crazy. But February is ending. But as it is in the Midwest, 4 seasons in a day, you can never be so sure that the freezing is gone. But I'm excited to potentially not wear my full length parka.
Yeah, and it's getting darker later too.
A little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. What's the thing you miss most, Mariah, that you put down during the winter? It's just unfortunate you do not do it during these bitter cold months. What's that thing that you miss the most?
I'm one of those girls that likes to read outside and sit by the lake. And I know it's still pretty, in the winter, whatever, but it's just not the same. I mean, but yeah, I would love to read a book by the lake.
I'm gonna round us out with our good news today. Heartland Alliance Health, a former branch of the social service network Heartland Alliance. We were covering them earlier this month because they had made an announcement that broke a ton of people's hearts, but they, in fact, will not be shutting down their food pantries and their clinics. They told their staff earlier this week that they received a multi-million-dollar grant and they're not going to have to close those locations. They had nearly 140 or 150 employees and served 8,000 community members in the various ways. And so I'm really happy because that story it happened very quick. People were expected to not only lose their jobs soon, but by the end of the month. And so similar to what we were talking about earlier, that shock you feel when a key community resource or your employment is just all of a sudden ripped from up under you, that it is really no way to put into words what that does to people. And so I am glad that in some small cases, especially this one, that resource will be around, at least in the short term, for all of the people who need it and rely on it. And so that's my good news today. I want to give a huge thank you to our guest today from the tribe, Corley J. Always good to see you, G.
Always fun. Thanks for having me.
Hey, and then to Mariah Rush from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Thank you.
Before we get out of here, I just want to give a huge thank you to the entire team who makes this podcast and newsletter possible. Our executive producer is Simone Alisea. Our producer is Michelle Navarro. Our Hey Chicago newsletter editor is Ava Wynowski. Our roving producer this week was Patrick Emile. The music we all love is from Sam Thousand, All the Kimonos, and Mark Greenberg from the Mayfair Workshop. And my last thank you, as it is every single week and every single episode, is for you, the people who listen to CityCast Chicago, who read Hey Chicago, who shares with your friends and family, who rate and review the podcast. It means the world to us. Please visit our website, chicago.citycast.fm, and contribute to our 1,000 Things We Love About Chicago list. We are in, I think, the last 150, 160 or something, so we need your help. Please contribute now. We'll be back bright and early on Monday. We'll talk to you then. Peace.